All right, so Ben, good morning. Today, we're going to cover a couple hot topics in the real estate industry. I was telling you before we jumped on, I'm getting a lot of messages about this Keller Williams cold call lawsuit that they settled for $40 million. And so with me today, I have Ben Riles, who's one of our leaders inside of our reverse selling community. And so, Ben, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Doing great. I'm looking forward to going deep on this topic because, you and I are just getting blown up from people. What are your thoughts? What do you think? And so we're going to unpack that. And then there's another story about your buddy Ryan Serhant that we'll get into here in just a second too. So before we get into the show today, for anybody watching or listening to this on the podcast, like always, if you guys are interested in a coaching relationship with us, and you want to build a multiple six-figure income, doing that as a listing agent where you can have nights and weekends off, just send Ben an email. It's probably the easiest way, and Ben can have a conversation with you, talk about how the program works, ask you some questions, and then together we can decide if working together makes any sense. So Ben, is the best place for them to reach you just ben@reverseselling.com?
It's perfect.
Awesome. So just send Ben an email. And then, like I said, you guys can schedule some time to jump on a call and figure out if now's the time or not. So with that, let's jump into it. So here's the recent article. So KW, it looks like it's been settled in a cold call class action lawsuit to pay $40 million, right? And so here's what the recent article said. It says Keller Williams has agreed to pay $40 million to settle a class action lawsuit alleging that the major real estate franchise, their agents made unsolicited, pre-recorded calls to consumers without their consent, including calls to people on the do not call list. The article goes on to say that such calls violate the TCPA, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, which was signed in 1991. And then it goes on to say, Ben talks about that although a common practice, one of the common things that agents do is call expired listings to drum up new clients. Being on the receiving end of those calls is probably what has prompted a lot of these lawsuits. Now, the interesting thing that I found was the article also says that the settlement, which it still has to get final approval, notes that about 2 million people will potentially be eligible to receive payments of $20.
$20.
$20. And
free lunch on us.
Yeah, free lunch on us for the class action lawsuit, which was a far cry from the $500 per violation or $1,500 per willful and knowing violation of the TCPA. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, let's unpack this a little bit. My first question is, let's define what pre-recorded means, what it means by using robocallers, things like that, and how that, really is going to affect a real estate agent. Who's in fault, who's not, I guess is the biggest questions I'm getting.
Yeah. Because you're right. Because when you go deeper into this, and just for little disclaimer, we are not attorneys. This is not legal advice. We have just been in the industry for a long time and giving you our opinion on what we see and how we're interpreting the data. So the interesting thing is this, okay? Here's my take on this entire thing. So let me share my screen. Can you see my screen okay?
Perfect.
All right, so check this out. So in order to receive compensation, the person must have received 2 or more calls or text messages made on or behalf of Keller Williams Realty. So the key thing here is 2 or more. And when I looked into this, I said, okay, well, the issue with, I think, what a lot of these bigger companies are dealing with is the consumer feels as though it's like the same agent from the same office, from the same team. It's practically, that's not what's happening, though. It's just because Keller Williams has so many agents calling the expired listing that Bob, the expired listing, says, do you people not understand? All these people from Keller Williams, hey, this is Susie from Keller Williams. Hey, this is Brian from Keller Williams, which I think that's the basis of this class action lawsuit.
Right. Because you and
Because
I both have called a ton of expireds. People we
yeah,
know call expireds. And when you get somebody on the phone, they'll use the phrase, "Why do you keep calling me?" Right?
that's right.
It could have been 10 other agents, not just you, obviously.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge, and it's like um when you look deeper into the law, Ben, I don't know if I share this with you or not. Check this out. So anybody can pull this up right on the fcc.gov website. Can you see this okay? I'll even blow this up even more. Here's the key thing, though. This is why when people ask me, well, Brandon, what should I do? How do you feel about this? Well, I'm not suggesting that you do or you don't do anything. I'm just sharing with you a part of the actual law itself. Here's what it says. It says, in order to be eligible for this, right, to file a complaint, a person who has received more than one telephone call within a 12-month period on half of the same entity. And that is what's happening to Keller Williams. So my take on that, Ben, when I look at the actual law, the filing of the TCPA, it's one or it's more than one. It's very clear. It's more than one. And so my position, right or wrong, good or bad, I'm not suggesting someone does or does not do, is I have, over my 17-year career, stayed out of trouble because if I, get somebody on the phone that is on a do not call list and asks me not to call them again, I adhere to that. And I've never had an issue because I'm respectful of the person. I don't call them again. And, oh, by the way, the law is very clear. It's more than one.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that specifically?
Well, I think too, like we look at the federal do not call list was enabled after the original 1991 in 2003. And it specifically goes into exactly what you're saying, just to keep people from pestering them or from using a existing relationship to overhear just the do not call list and be able to call. So yeah, like if somebody wants to opt out, give them the opportunity to opt out and leave them alone, right? That's all we're trying to do in the first place is help people.
That's
so if somebody doesn't want our help, let's move on.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the other thing is, so the article went on to say that not only is it, receive 2 or more calls or text messages, but also receive those with an auto dialer, right? And so the other thing that I've been recommending with people that we coach, that we work with, that we serve, is that when you are attempting to help somebody whose home has expired and come off the market, that you hand dial this person. This isn't a foolproof thing. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not trying to get around the law. I'm not trying to do any of that whatsoever. However, I do believe that there is potential more protection from my understanding. Again, I'm not an attorney, that if you call them direct without using the auto dialer, that there's also some built-in protection, perhaps, right?
Yeah. Let me make another note on that topic too. I think the reason that they comment on the auto dialer is because there's like dead air, right? There's some time when somebody's like, hello, hello. If you use a quote unquote auto dialer, just use a single line dialer because that's
exactly
allowed.
Right.
And then you won't experience that consumer won't experience it. And they won't even, not that we're trying to trick them, but it stays within the regulation. So they won't know it's an auto dialer. The frustration is they answer the phone, there's nobody there. Then it's hello, hello, hello. That's the frustration with the auto dialer. And then if you don't answer on an auto dialer, it drops a voicemail that's pre-recorded. Like, hey, sorry, I can't talk right now. I'll call you back. It's like, you called me. Why are you giving me this pre-recording? That's the frustration. So let's use hand dial or single dial to reach those people so that we can actually talk to them right away.
Yeah, Ben, you nailed it. And, keeping this, company agnostic is, there are some companies that have made a business decision to say, we don't offer a multiple line dialer
That's right.
because of TCPA compliance.
That's right.
So, some that do have the multiple line dialers, I mean, they have their own legal battles that they're fighting right now because of that. And then the third thing, what Ben said is exactly right. It's the multiple calls, and then that delay. That's number one. Then two is that pre-recorded message, and then three, the other piece that I think causes a lot of frustration and legal issues is the ringless voicemail drops.
Yes.
Right. So that's the other thing. So the law
Why do
is,
people use those, right? I think it's because they're scared of rejection, or they know that they're getting the consumer's getting a bunch of calls and they just want to get a message across, and that can be frustrating for the consumer.
yeah, and that's what the law is trying to protect against. It's so again, I don't. So when I look at this, I'm. So what is your? And there's no right or wrong. What is your opinion of? Well, I guess, yeah, I was going to ask you, what's your opinion of KW just settling, not continuing to fight this, just saying, we'll just settle this. Here's 40 mil. What's your personal opinion of that?
I think, hey, why did KW get picked on in the first place? Why wasn't it another big shop? Why KW? And I think it's just they poked the wrong person, and I think they just don't want to. They're settling because they don't want to make this a bigger deal than it really is, my opinion.
Yeah, and I think, my opinion on that is the law where KW doesn't have, the reason why I think they settled is because of this whole and I'll share this again, is the whole one or more telephone calls in a 12-month period behalf of the same entity. So that's where I think they just got crushed, because it's not the same person. It's the entity where I think KW is like, well, I mean, we have thousands of our agents calling these expired listings every single day. So the argument could be, if it's Ben or if it's Brandon, right? And you called somebody one time, you apologize, hey, I'll take you off my list, that's it. You never call them again. Again, this is not legal advice. It's just been my experience that a real estate salesperson probably has little to worry about if that's what they are doing. Sure. I think that the consumer's perception is when you're getting all these calls and it's like, this is so-and-so with Keller Williams every 2 seconds, they're assuming that's the same person, which drives the person absolutely bonkers.
Sure.
So another big story that just hit. And it is Mr. Ryan Serhant in the news again. And so there's a couple things here to unpack. So there's actually two stories I want to talk about. The first one is, well, let me kind of go through the story and then we'll kind of unpack this. So this has to do with Ryan Serhant and another CEO of a big luxury real estate brokerage firm kind of butting heads, twice in a very short amount of time. This story specifically, a report says Ryan Serhant, who's known for making some bold moves, this time has overstepped his boundaries. The article says that an unidentified salesperson of Serhant Ventures, which is the brokerage's educational branch, sent Brown Harris Stevens, who's the CEO of Bess Friedman, a pitch last week for a tailor-made training program for the brokerage's agents, which would include a sales playbook, performance coaching, social media boot camp, and mentorship from Ryan Serhant himself. So the CEO responds to that and says, hey, let me just make sure that I'm clear on what you guys are offering. So she kind of responds back to the salesperson. The salesperson kind of is being a little, I think, vague. And then the CEO is like, I don't know. This doesn't feel right. Like, I don't know if they felt like it was a recruiting ploy. But she's like, no, we're out. And so that was the second thing that these people butted heads on. But it's interesting to see, were they up to something or were they not, right? And so if you were approached from that perspective, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think because they have past history, it might have been looked in a little bit more. Ryan uses a third-party service to sell his coaching. So it could have been a common, just outbound cold reach. and it reached the wrong person. And then it was looked into and it assumed that Ryan was kind of jabbing at her and saying that she needed coaching or her team needed coaching. Because I think what this is it's old school versus new school. She focuses on brand and just being around forever in the industry. And Ryan is all about like marketing and kind of new age social media and pumping content out to help his agents build their own brand. So it could have been the third party reaching out and just getting the wrong person by mistake, and this thing got blown up, or it could have been more. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I think you hit it, because the reason why I think this is even a story at all is because the week prior, these two were on stage at some real estate conference, and they got into like this heated debate, right? And so the Real Deal put out an article about this where Brown Harris Stevens, who again is CEO of Best Friedman, and Ryan were kind of bantering back and forth about what you just said, which is so her position is that the traditional brokerage model is better for the agent, and Ryan's position is, well, the real estate brokerage's brand is irrelevant in today's marketplace. It's all about the agent's personal brand. Yeah. Because consumers, and this is what he said in the article, consumers do business with people, not companies, right? Mm. So I want to talk to you about that, because my opinion, this is where I do align with Ryan. I do align with him that the old traditional real estate brokerage firms that are still hanging on to this, their brand, right? It's not one per se, I'm just giving examples, but the Coldwell Bankers, the whatever name you want to use, and their value proposition to the agent, to you and I, is, hey, you're going to give us a healthy portion of your commission because this brand that is 150 years old will help you sell more real estate. To which I argue the exact opposite, that it no longer makes sense to give up a lot of your commission to a brokerage because of their name, because you're the one securing the business, and consumers are doing business with people, not with companies. Which side do you land on there?
Yeah, I think it's twofold, right? So you've got agents getting in assume that they need this big brand, right? And they think it's going to solve all their problems. But in reality, it's you, the agent, that has to do the work, right? And if you want to, and it gives you confidence to leverage this big brand when you're new, then great, right? Use that if you need it as just kind of a pick-me-up to get going. But I'm with you. I think it's all about the agent, especially in this day and age, when you have social media, when you can truly put yourself out there with free content, free ways to build, your opinions and what you're doing. Where before the broker would put that through billboards and commercials and all that stuff. So yeah, I just think if it gives you a little bit of confidence at first, do it. But do you need it? No.
Yeah, I think it's a perception.
Correct.
It's a perception that, to your point, once maybe had an impact on the consumer. It certainly still has relevancy to the real estate agent, because you're right. The agent says, I don't know, I just feel better if I'm with a Remax or a Keller Williams or a Century 21. But here's the thing is, if an agent is going to go meet with a potential seller at a listing appointment, and this agent knows the market, has confidence, has experience, knows what they're doing, can convey that and compel sellers to say, wow, this person really knows what they're doing, they can do all of that and the seller not know what company they are with, and their conversion, in my opinion, doesn't change. Because here's the thing, the exact opposite is true. If an agent goes into a listing presentation with I don't know, I'll just call it Coldwell Banker badge, right? One of the oldest brands in our industry, which that company would suggest that the brand has power, and they go in and they communicate like absolute doggy doo-doo, right? No confidence, don't know what they're talking about, don't know the market stats. I just don't believe that the badge has that much power where the consumer says, well, you're with a big brand. We know you don't know your head from a hole in the ground, but we'll go ahead and list it with you. I just don't believe in that. I think that the consumer says, I'm going to hire Bob. And many times I prove this. I have, for the longest time, to be fair, you're right in what you said in that I just felt a sense of comfort as an agent working at a big brand. And I was nervous when we started our independent agency. I was nervous that, it's time to put, this to the test. And if anything, it helped us secure more business because we worked on providing more value. Never, not once to this day, not even one time, because everything has an anomaly, but not in this case. Not once have I ever had a client not do business with me because I was with a independent company and not a big name. Not one time has it ever happened. So much so, it's rare that people even ask me what company I'm with. What's been your experience with that, with serving the consumer?
Well, I think that when a consumer points to that and says, oh, hey, Ben, we decided to go with XYZ, Bob with Remax instead of you, oftentimes, I would say 100 out of 100, it's because that person did a better job of delivering perceived value to the consumer, and they happen to be at that brokerage. And that's just in the consumer's head what they hung their hat on, is that brand. And that's why Joe Bob knew what he was talking about, is because he's with Remax. However, we're all independent contractors. So there's going to be great agents at perceiving value or delivering value to people at big shops, and there's going to be bad ones, right? So I think the consumer often will tell you that's the reason, but it's not. It's because you didn't deliver a value proposition that was compelling enough.
So you think that the consumers are, so let me just make sure I heard that right. Are you suggesting that the consumer, there's no right or wrong, this is good conversation, that the consumer hangs their hat on the person or the company that made them decide?
I think that they absolutely hang it on the person, but when the consumer tells the other agent why they went with the other person, they say, I went with so-and-so with Remax. The losing agent says, oh, he chose him because of Remax.
Yes, okay, that's what I thought you said, because I think when you said it differently. Yeah, backwards. So that's what I thought you were saying, because I agree 100%. The losing agent says, oh, I lost to Remax. No, you didn't lose to Remax. You lost to Bob, who's a better agent, who has more confidence, who's a better salesperson, who gave more confidence to the seller that just happened to be at Remax.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so my position now is I am under the belief that these traditional brokerages need to change. And it's hard and I'd love to debate this with anybody who sees this differently, but I'll walk people through quickly the evolution of real estate brokerage. It's started off with the traditional brands, and Ben, you and I would go work at these brands, and to your point, that brokerage would bring us in all of our opportunities. So it made sense that we would split our commission 50-50. The brokerage would give you an office. The brokerage would give you a phone. The brokerage would give you a secretary and an assistant. This is going back, we're talking, 50, 60, 70 years. And then what happened in the 80s, this guy named Gary Keller came out and he created the cap model, which was like revolutionary. It changed brokerages forever. And the agent's like, yeah, why am I giving up so much money to this traditional broker? It makes sense to cap it out. And Gary deserves a lot of credit because he was the first one who said, brokerages need to be for the agent. and you need to build a personal brand. That's when everything went kind of haywire. All these teams started popping up, and agents for the first time ever started branding themselves, right, as the brand. The so-and-so team, the realtor. That was all a Keller Williams thing.
Cool.
Then RE/MAX comes out with 100% concept. That changed everything. And so, am I under the belief that these traditional brokerage models that still have a franchise fee that never goes away and still charging these commission splits that don't cap out, are they in trouble per se? I don't know if they're in trouble. I think they need to evolve. And I have met with some of the CEOs, and I think some of them are finally starting to agree. Like, for an agent to come here that is an established, successful business person, they're going to give me 42% of their commission forever and pay me $400,000 if they're going to make $1 million in GCI. I don't think so.
Yeah.
What's your belief on that? Do you think that the place for an agent to do that makes any sense?
No, absolutely not. And this goes into a whole nother debate and opinion. So what I would say is what we've moved away from is what you described. And now where agents are going is the team, because they are getting the leads, they are getting the leverage to launch their business. So instead of what before was the brokerage, now is the team.
Great point.
And it makes sense to give up 50% to be on that team to launch and get the leads and the leverage and all those things to learn the business.
Great point. Because I think I missed that just a minute ago, is that there's actually two sides of it. There's one side of the agent who is self-sufficient, that has their license at a brokerage because it's the law and you have to, but they don't really need anything from the brokerage. That agent, I just don't see the world where they're going to give up 20, 30, 40% of their commission any longer. I think those are gone. That's one side. But the other side, to your point, is there is a case to be made for a 50-50 split where it actually makes a lot of sense for the agent because of how real estate started. And I say that all the time. It's like, if you come on my team and I set all your listing appointments for you and I do all the customer service, I do all the paperwork, I do all the transaction coordination, all you have to do, Ben, is go on the appointment, onboard the client, right? Close the deal, so to speak, bring back a listing contract, and we take care of the rest. Yeah. And as a result, your net taxable income at the end of the year is more than what you are making by yourself. And we're on a 50-50 split. That's hard to argue too.
It is. And the problem with real estate
Ego.
Is people are on it. You nailed it. Exactly. And that's my opinion. I just had a conversation with an agent. He's independent at a big brokerage and was like, I gotta get another job. And I said, to support this, because I really want to do this. And I said, hold on, let's think about this for a second. Why don't you just get a job in real estate? And I said, just hear me out. I said, treat the team like a job in real estate where you get to sell. Okay. So join this team. Know that you're losing a little bit of freedom, your schedule. You gotta adhere to, listen to somebody. You have a boss. Okay. And just know the value exchange that you're getting. Your frustration is inconsistent income, inconsistent leads, right? Security for your family. So go learn the business, build the confidence for a period of time. And if you decide, hey, I'm comfortable here forever, making $200,000, stick there. Okay. But oftentimes, like you said, the ego gets in the way and they say, man, I just made 10 grand on this deal. I did all the work, right? And they're like, I'm going to go do this on my own because I want the 10 grand because this business is so transparent, right? You join another business, med device or something like that. You don't know the top line and the bottom line and what percentage you're getting in commissions. You just see hey, I made 250. I'm comfortable with that.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Just so you know, that's going to be cut up into its own reel. Just so you know, all that. I mean, Ben, I've never heard that before in my entire career. I mean, that insight that I just took that as a note, is probably some of the best advice I've ever heard in my life.
Cool.
And why no one's ever thought of that before outside of you, I'm not sure. But that is incredible. You nailed it.
Yeah.
The solo agent who says, man, this is tough, I got to go get a job. Well, I mean, that's the no-brainer of the century.
Yeah.
Get the job inside the business you want to be in.
That's right.
And that's going on the team. And I'll tell you what, not only do I agree, but I think most of those people probably end up being happier on the team and probably don't end up leaving the team because it's like, holy crap, I'm making more money. I have less headaches. I have more balance with my family. I'm working less. I don't have to do all this stuff I don't like to do. I can just do client servicing things, sales activities. I don't have to worry about any admin stuff. This is pretty good, But to your point, that becomes the job because everybody's running away from that structure, that accountability, having the boss. Instead of going out of the industry to get the job in the industry, which is you're trying to be in full-time anyways. That is great insight.
And if you want to, what I told this guy, if you want to take the leads, but also continue to build your own brand, build your own lead source. So at some point you can transition out, right? When you want to be a business owner, because that's what an independent agent is a business owner.
Amazing. Great insights, Ben. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right.